Today, we're going to be getting into what the Civil War was really like, and we're going to start by reading the introduction. The introduction says, "What factors contributed to the outcome of the Civil War?" Tensions between the North and South eventually led to the Civil War. A main source of this tension was a difference of opinion over the issue of slavery. Northerners thought slavery was unconstitutional, while Southerners had made slavery an important part of their economy. When these tensions placed the country into a state of war, the effects were enormous. Both the Union and the Confederacy thought the war would be over in a matter of months. They were wrong. By the time the Civil War was finished, over 4 years had gone by. More Americans died in the Civil War than in any other war in our nation's history. In July of 1863, about 160,000 Union and Confederate soldiers fought at Gettysburg in Pennsylvania. This battle was one of the turning points in the Civil War. After the North won at Gettysburg, they would not look back. This lesson takes an up-close look at the Union and Confederate armies. Who were these men in the armies, and what weapons did they use? What kinds of foods did they eat, and how did soldiers survive when supplies ran low? You will also learn about what was happening on the home front from both sides. Nobody in the Union or Confederacy was removed from the Civil War's impact. As you read this lesson, think about what life was like for soldiers in the Civil War. How was the war similar for the Union and Confederate soldiers? How was it different? On the next page, you are going to answer 2 questions. At the beginning of the war, men on both sides thought the war would be over in a matter of months. How long did it actually last? And the second question, what was a main source of tension between the North and the South? Now you're going to read the next section, and what I want you looking for is the ways that the North and the South, or the Union and Confederate armies, are alike and different. Okay, so as we read section 1, it says the Union and Confederate armies. In 1861, neither the North nor the South was prepared to fight a long war. Both sides needed to build strong armies if they wanted to have a chance of winning at any potential war. Men who signed up to fight were motivated for different reasons. Some men hoped to find adventure or glory, while others were moved simply by patriotism. In the North, President Abraham Lincoln asked men to fight to preserve the Union. He meant that he wanted to keep the United States as one country. Lincoln passed the Emancipation Proclamation in January 1863, which freed slaves in the Confederate States not yet under Union control. It made many Northerners feel that they fought for freedom as well as for the Union. White Southerners also fought to be free from Northern control, since they wanted states to be free to leave the Union. Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, also called on Southerners to defend their homeland and way of life. But all of these reasons did not draw enough men into the fight. Before the war's end, both sides used unpopular system, the draft, to fill their armies. In the end, millions of men fought in this conflict, and 752,000 of them died. When you continue, it says, much of the Union Army was made up of poor farmers. As much as 1/4 of the Union soldiers were immigrants from Europe, and another 180,000 African Americans were in the army. The Confederate troops were mostly farmers and poor white men. Civil War soldiers chose their own uniforms at first, but this variety in clothing was confusing on the battlefield. Troops would sometimes shoot at their fellow soldiers, so both armies were forced to adopt official uniforms. Union soldiers wore dark blue jackets, blue pants, and blue caps. Confederate soldiers wore long tan gray shirts, pants, and jackets. Early in the war, soldiers went into battle with little training. Gradually, their skills began to improve after hundreds of hours of drills. They learned how to march, to change directions on command, and to obey orders quickly. Both sides also needed good leaders to command their troops. Many of the nation's skilled generals were Southerners and chose to fight for the Confederacy. The most famous of these expert generals was Robert E. Lee of Virginia. Lee turned down an offer to command the Union armies and eventually took control of the Confederate force. In the North, President Lincoln spent the early years of the war appointing one general after another. He needed someone who could lead the Union armies to victory. When the fighting began, soldiers on both sides thought that the war would be short and that little blood would be shed. They were wrong. If you go to the next page, just what I told you you were going to be doing, you're going to be comparing the Union and Confederate Army. So in the table on the left side, write things about the Union Army that you read about on the last 2 pages. On the right, what happened and what are things about the Confederate Army that you learned? And in the middle, what are things that they have in common? There are plenty of these things in the reading, so you shouldn't have any trouble filling out this table. Okay, so best of luck with your work today, and please let me know if you have any questions.